All right, let's get right into it. We all see the headlines, right? And we're definitely all feeling that pinch at the gas pump. But what's the real story here? How does a war thousands of miles away connect directly to our daily lives? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain and trace that ripple effect, all the way from the battlefield straight to your bank account. It all kind of starts right here. $1.02. That's the average jump per gallon of regular gas in the US since late February. And that's not just a number on a screen. That's a sudden, sharp shock to the budget for millions of us. You don't just see it, you feel it every single time you fill up the tank. So that's the big question, isn't it? What is actually driving this spike? I mean, it's easy to point fingers at inflation or just corporate greed, but the real driver, it's a much more complex chain of events that starts a half a world away. So let's connect those dots. And the answer begins with something pretty grim, the absolutely staggering price of a conflict. To understand this, we're going to break down the costs of a hypothetical military operation we'll call Operation Epic Fury, looking at both the dollars and cents and, way more importantly, the human lives. Get this, $1 billion. That is the estimated cost, not for the whole war, but per day. According to Pentagon briefings, that's what it could cost U.S. taxpayers to fund operations against Iran. It's a number that's, well, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around, and it's being spent every single 24 hours. But, the money isn't the real cost, not even close. The human toll shown here, it's just sobering. These are not statistics. These are lives lost. Families completely shattered on all sides, and it includes a horrific strike on a girls' school. This is the real, irreversible price of any conflict. And this timeline, it just shows you how terrifyingly fast things escalated. From the first day of strikes, the focus of the conflict shifted, and it shifted fast, right towards critical economic infrastructure. I mean, look at the dates. In just about 1 month, it went from initial strikes to direct threats against an entire country's energy sector. So those shockwaves from the war, they didn't stay contained, not at all. They started hitting a critical artery of the entire global economy, a single narrow waterway that has immense power over all of us. And this is it, the Strait of Hormuz. It's the only way to get by sea from the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. And here's the crazy part. A full 20%, 1/5 of the entire world's daily oil supply, has to pass through this tiny little choke point. That makes it, arguably, the single most important stretch of water on the planet for the global economy. Now, to put a potential closure of the strait into perspective, you have to look at this. The famous oil shocks of the 1970s, the ones that caused absolute economic chaos, that was a supply disruption of around 6%. This situation we're talking about, it could take almost 20% of global supply off the market just like that. This is a completely unprecedented event. It dwarfs all those historical energy crises. And right now, we're seeing this huge disconnect. On one side, you have the markets. They're betting on what some are calling the taco narrative, that Trump always chickens out. They think he'll back down to avoid the economic pain. But on the other side, you've got the analysts, and a lot of them are saying not so fast. They argue the political and security costs of backing down are just too high, which makes a long, drawn-out conflict way more likely. And a long conflict, yeah, that has some serious consequences. The Dallas Fed actually modeled the impact, and the numbers are pretty stark. If the strait stays closed for just 1 quarter, oil is going to average near $100 a barrel. But if this thing lasts 3 quarters, we could be looking at oil at $132, wiping out a massive 1.3% from global GDP growth. Okay, so we've been talking about big, abstract numbers. Global GDP, right? But what does a drop in global GDP actually feel like? For you, for me? Well, this next part is all about that connection, how these massive global events end up squeezing the finances of regular people. This quote, man, it just perfectly captures that deep anxiety so many people are feeling. It's this fear that you can do everything right. You can work hard, you can save your money, but you still fall behind. Not because of anything you did, but because the money itself feels like it's failing. The value of your work is just eroding. Some people are calling this phenomenon the silent collapse. And it's not some big, sudden crash you see on the news. No, it's more like a slow, quiet bleed. It's that gradual realization that your salary, even if the number on the paycheck goes up, it just buys less. Less food, less gas, less security than it did just a year ago. And the symptoms? I'm guessing these are going to sound pretty familiar. Does it feel like your paycheck is shrinking, even if the number's the same? Do the rising prices for groceries feel, well, permanent? Does owning a home or paying for college feel like it's slipping out of reach? These are the real-world signs of that middle-class squeeze. So when you have this kind of widespread financial pressure, it's only natural that people start looking for alternatives, right? So for our final section, let's just explore a totally different financial philosophy that seems to be popping up as a direct response to this fragility we've been talking about. The core idea here is really simple. When the traditional systems we've always relied on start to feel a little shaky, people naturally start searching for new ones. Now, this isn't an endorsement or a recommendation. It's just an observation of a really interesting trend that's being born out of these exact economic conditions. The proponents of this new way of thinking, they argue that for your wealth to be truly secure in this new era, it needs to have 4 key properties. It has to be resistant to inflation, it has to be independent from the banking system, you need to be able to move it globally, and it has to be politically neutral. And this slide really shows you the fundamental contrast in philosophies. On one side, you've got traditional currencies, fiat money, which governments can basically create out of thin air, making it vulnerable to losing its value over time. And on the other side, an asset like Bitcoin is being presented by its supporters as an alternative with a fixed, predictable supply, one that's designed to be independent of any single government or bank's control. This quote, I think, just sums up the whole mindset perfectly. This isn't about predicting some doomsday scenario. Not at all. It's simply about acknowledging that the systems we all rely on, they have undeniable points of weakness, of fragility, and it's about taking steps to manage that risk. It's all about preparation, not panic. And that all leaves us with one final, really big question to chew on. In an era where we see wars being fought over physical resources and choke points, while at the same time we're watching the value of our money just erode, what's going to matter more for power in the 21st century? Controlling land or controlling the digital ledgers that define our new systems of value?